January 10th, 2019. My husband was taking me to work, and he was screaming at me, and he told me to go into a grocery store and grab some food for my son for breakfast. The grocery store was closed, and as I walked up to the door, he drove off. I had to be at work in 10 minutes, and my work was about 2 miles down the road, so I began walking. He pulled up beside me and said, "Get in, bitch," and then held a pocket knife, it was more of a box knife, up to me as he drove me to work. And I got out and went into my job. I sat down at my desk, and I was visibly shaken because at that moment I knew that today was the day I was going to leave. I had been planning it for so long. My employees came up to me and they were asking me what was going on. And I sat them down and I told them all the things that I had been through. And I told them, do not call the police until I text you. Do not do anything. But if I don't show up for work, or I don't call you before the sun rises, please call the police because I'm dead. All day I didn't do my job. I just cried. I told them every step of my plan and exactly what I was going to be doing. They wanted to make sure they knew where I was going to be at all times. It was 3 o'clock and my husband came to pick me up. I got in the car and I told him that I was hungry. And he said, "Well, you didn't deserve to eat. Maybe we'll get food." He drove about 60 miles down the road all the way home. And between his rants and screaming, I said, when we get home, could you open up the safe? I need to do our taxes. And of course, anytime something came to money, he would jump on it. He said, "Yeah, I'll open up the safe, but you better get them done tonight." It's like, okay. We went upstairs. He opened up the safe. He said, "I'm going to go grab food." While he was gone, I gathered all of the important documents that were in the safe. I grabbed my marriage license, all my tax information for the past few years. I grabbed my birth certificate, my son's birth certificate, both of our social security cards, and I put them in a backpack underneath the bed. I then grabbed 2 diapers and put them in the backpack, and my son's tablet, and my husband came home. He threw my food in my face and told me to eat, and so I did. And he said, I don't want to talk to you. You better get that stuff done." We were laying in bed, and about this time, it was close to 7:30, and I turned on the last Harry Potter movie because I knew that there was going to be a fight scene that was going to be extremely loud. And I wanted to make sure things were going to be loud whenever I left. So my husband starts dozing off to sleep. And I guess it was both of the last Harry Potters together, because we watched, it was the first one and the first part and the second part. The movie was playing and he dozed off, and so did my son. By the time they were asleep, it was about maybe 8 o'clock. I started getting more things together. My husband had taken off of his jeans, and so I went into his jeans and I grabbed his wallet. Inside the wallet was my driver's license and my debit card and my health insurance card. I put those in the backpack. I had gotten some money sent to me from my grandmother, and it was a good amount of money. But of course, anything that was given to me was his. He had locked the money inside of a toolbox that was above his head. And he had the keys underneath his pillow. So I had to reach underneath his pillow and slowly grab these keys and stick them into this metal red toolbox above his head and slowly unlock it. As I unlocked this toolbox, it made some sound and my son started rolling over, and I started panicking, thinking if I wake my son up, it's definitely going to wake him up. But it didn't. I opened the toolbox and I grabbed the money out of it, and then I closed it back up and locked it. Put the key right back under the pillow. Put the money inside of the backpack. And then I had to find the car keys. They were constantly hidden from me and I didn't watch and see where he had put them. I found them in the kitchen in a drawer. So I grabbed them and I slowly took them off of the key ring. I had to do it in the bathroom because I didn't want to make that jingling sound of keys. I got the car keys off and I went back to the backpack, and I kept thinking, what can I do now? I needed to put on more clothes. All I was wearing was a t-shirt. So I slipped on some of his shorts. I only had work pants. I didn't have any pants that fit me other than the ones I wore to work. But I put on his shorts, and I saw a pair of his house shoes, and so I slowly slipped those on. My husband then sat up and he said, "You're such a fucking bitch." At that moment, my heart was skipping. I thought, he knows exactly what I'm doing. And I just froze, and he leaned back over and fell back asleep. I don't know what happened, other than my body went on autopilot after that. I slowly moved my son closer to the edge of the bed. We co-slept. My son did have a bed, but he didn't like sleeping in it. And I went back to the backpack, grabbed the keys, and started my car from the window. I grabbed my son and just ran with that backpack and my son down 3 flights of stairs and out to the car. I was so nervous and so scared that I forgot to unlock the car. And so I fumbled around with the keys and I finally got it unlocked, and I put my son in the back seat, and at this time he was 1.5, 2 years old, I think. I guess he was 2. And I told him, "You gotta get in your car seat. You gotta show me you can buckle it up." And my son did. He got in his car seat and buckled it. I backed out and I drove to the fire station that was less than 600 feet away from the entrance to where we lived. I started banging on the door with my son in my arms. And I know I scared the firefighters. because they opened that door and were shocked. I said, I need you to let me in. Please, just let me in. The firefighters that night were amazing. They gave us warm blankets and water. They contacted the police. And they took care of my son. They made him not scared. I'm so thankful to those men. After a while, an officer showed up. Officer Mitchell. I don't remember anything other than his last name was Mitchell. And he said, I have a place for you guys to go. And we're going to go right now. Now, I hadn't driven in years other than that moment that I left from the house to the fire station. I wasn't allowed to drive. And my entire life, I had never driven outside of about a 30-mile radius. So officer turned on his lights and sirens and said, you need to follow me. He took me to a shelter. When I arrived in the shelter, I was in so much shock. I was crying. I was shaking. And my son thought it was just a blast. He saw toys and that's all he cared about. I was so hungry because I could barely eat what my husband had given me. They offered me a warm meal. And I sat down and ate, and they said that they were processing me to get into the shelter. It took a few hours, and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. I made my first phone call to somebody. I called my grandmother, and I told her, whatever you do, don't answer the door. Dylan's going to be looking for me. And she listened. She didn't answer the door. It was a few hours later that I finally got checked in. And I had my first shower in a month. I got to take a shower with shampoo and conditioner. And I could see all of the dirt just coming off of me. My son fell asleep on the cot that they gave us, and I realized I am not being watched. Nobody is watching me. I put on deodorant, I brushed my teeth, I brushed my hair. They gave me makeup. And even though it was early in the morning and nobody was going to see me, I wanted to put makeup on. And with my son asleep, I walked up to the front desk of the shelter and I asked somebody for help. I wanted to put this makeup on and I didn't really remember how to do it. And a young woman helped me. She put eyeliner on me and put base on my face, and then she handed me some more clothes. Some clothes that weren't just rags that people had donated. She handed me some clothes out of her car. I felt like a person again for the first time. I didn't sleep that night because I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified he was going to find me. They tried to reassure me that there were police there and no one was going to get into the facility. But I was still scared. It took me 3 weeks to walk out of the shelter without being in fear. took me another week to drive somewhere outside of the shelter. That moment, 1 year ago today, was the scariest moment of my life. But it was the most important thing that I've ever done. I was planning this for so long, and I thought it through. I had saved up photos, text messages. I had saved up so much information. And I made sure that I left with everything that I needed. Every document, all my identification, and most importantly, I made sure that I had money, because I was scared that if I had left without money, I would be living in my car with my child. It's so crazy because I didn't realize that this planning was so important. And there's a lot of people out there who are currently in a domestic violence situation. And I will tell you, leaving is the most dangerous part. You hear it all the time. But have a plan. Having a plan is the safest thing you can do. Make sure you have the things you need. There were so many women in that shelter who had nothing. Nothing but their children. And they had to go through state agencies to get replacements of all of their legal documents. They had to wear all of the donated clothes, and they couldn't have anything nice. And I had to do that. I had that one nice outfit that the woman at the front desk gave me, and the rest was all donated clothes. I was thankful for them. But I wanted to have real clothes. If I hadn't have made it out that night, the great thing is, I told somebody. I told my coworkers ahead of time. And I know that they would have called. Because when I called them at 3 o'clock in the morning, they answered. And they were worried. They were there for me. And every night that I spent in the shelter and I wasn't at work, they called me. And I didn't realize I had friends. I didn't realize that I had people in my life who actually cared about me until that moment. It's amazing what you realize when you're taken away from all of the conditioning. I am so lucky to be here a year later. My life was horrible. As I spent so many days inside of the shelter, I would hear stories from other women of what they went through. And in my mind, as I heard their stories, my brain wanted me to just say, "That's all you went through?" And I know that sounds terrible, but I went through hell. And I lived it for 13 years. I can't believe some of these women were able to leave at the smallest incidents. And when I say smallest, I mean they were big incidents. But in my mind, they were small. I can't believe I went through so many years. And here I am, free. And I'm glad. I'm so happy. I've noticed that leading up to today has been extremely difficult. A lot of times in my posts I talk about PTSD, and although I haven't gone to actually be diagnosed with it, I know that I have it. It's crazy because today I feel everything that I felt that night. And I felt it all day long. I've been stressed out. I even called my mother and told her I'm just so stressed. I feel anxiety. And it's just how my body's remembering it. And I understand that, and I know that. And a survivor recently had asked me what I do whenever I have flashbacks. And what I do is I just read affirmations to help myself kind of get over it. And I read them over and over again until the words are all I'm thinking about. And it helps. It's just, I like to analyze why I'm feeling the way I do and why everything happened the way it did, because I never really thought about it whenever I was in the situation. I didn't think about why I was feeling the way I did. But now I can look back and I can understand it a little bit more. But tonight I just wanted to kind of share this with you because it's an anniversary of the best thing I've ever done in my life. And I'm glad to be here. I know a few of you have written. I don't have my contacts in, so I'm going to have to lean up and read this. Yeah, roll call. Deathly Hallows. Yeah, those were the 2 Harry Potter movies. Yeah, Easy Gunner, he said, if there are any of you out there that need help, there's a firehouse or police station that will help you. You are not alone. Yeah, I thought about it for months. Where would I go? Because I couldn't go anywhere that I regularly would go. I couldn't go to anyone in the family because he would think that. He would think to go there. I had to go somewhere safe, and I saw that fire station numerous times. We drove by it all the time. And